Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining on this auspicious occasion of the superb owl. So I know some of you have some time to kill this afternoon. So I'm going to see who joins and then see if I can answer any questions for anybody about cybersecurity jobs or careers or resumes, or otherwise I'm just going to talk about what I've been seeing lately. And hopefully this video is useful to some people who are trying to find jobs in cybersecurity. So if you have questions, of course, you can reach over to the side of your YouTube channel and type them in, and I will give my best attempt to give you useful information or not useful information if you ask me dumb questions. And there are dumb questions. Anyway, nice to see you all. And I have been doing mentorship sessions on cybersecurity jobs for the last several years through clinics and also through a Calendly, which you can see in my social media profiles. You're welcome to always sign up for a private one-on-one session with me. My background is I work in cybersecurity incident response, specifically for industrial control systems. I've been doing that for the last 15, 16 years. I've been working in IT for the last 25 or so. And I found that a lot of people want help with their resumes and also trying to decide what they want to be when they grow up in cybersecurity. And I've done a lot of talks on that topic. I've done talks on picking a niche, which is challenging for everybody. Everybody has trouble deciding what they want to do when they grow up. And also they have difficulty finding roles for a variety of reasons. A lot of it has to do with their resumes. A lot of it has to do with how they're hunting for a job, what they're trying to do, and also just self-confidence in their ability to sell themselves to employers. And the last year has been very difficult for cybersecurity job hunters, certainly. There's been a lot of problems with RIFs and people who are new to the industry competing with more senior people who have recently lost their jobs. And things are definitely improving, but it's still challenging to land a job. You have to do more today than you had to 3, 4, 5 years ago to get an entry-level cybersecurity job. So let's start out with resumes. And I see a lot of resumes in my mentorship sessions. I see a lot of good resumes, bad resumes, ugly resumes. And a lot of times that is what's causing people problems in landing their first job or a junior level job in cybersecurity, even for senior people sometimes. In modern hiring, most organizations, mid to large size organizations, are using automated filters for resumes. And your resume really can make or break you. Now, while I offer sessions to meet with people on their resumes, I will always recommend that you invest in talking to somebody who is a professional resume editor, not somebody on Fiverr, not somebody you met at your college, a professional person in your area who's well regarded and certified, to do an English language and format evaluation of your resume. Because people do use obsolete formats, resumes go in trends, they have fashions. And there's little niche nuances about getting through HR that somebody like me isn't a specialist in. So invest in going to see a professional about your resume. Don't let ChatGPT write it for you. ChatGPT can come up with words and terms that might be useful for you, but it won't write a good narrative about you. So do see a professional. Don't use ChatGPT to write the whole resume. Actually, don't use LinkedIn to write the whole resume either. There's some issues with their format and their template as well. And do see somebody like me who's a technical expert, hopefully in your niche of tech. That's really important too. You should see somebody who can look at your skills section because, again, that automated filtering in most organizations today will make or break you. And something that automated filtering does is search for specific keywords in your resume. So it's looking for specific words, terms, skills, and it's doing a string search. So it's looking for things to be typed and spelled out in certain ways. And if it doesn't find that match, it's not a human. It's not smart enough to figure out that you didn't use an acronym when you should have used an acronym, or you didn't spell out a term when you should have spelled out a term. It's yes or no and a percentile. And if you're getting automatic rejections on your resume, like within a few minutes of you submitting your resume, that's usually why. You don't have a skills section that's adequate. It's not matching the posting to a significant degree, and it's getting thrown out before a human being even sees it. So The number one thing that I spend time on with my mentees right now is looking at their skills section and making sure that their skills section matches adequately. It's really, really important to go through your skills in your resume and make sure that you're not lying about skills you don't have. But if they spell out DNS, then spell it out in your skills section and make sure that there's significant applicable skills to the job role and the posting that you're applying for. You can always tweak your skills section for every job that you apply for. So weak skills sections, huge thing. Poor formats that are not making it through plain text conversion, another big problem. Obsolete formats, a big problem. And also resumes that kind of overdo it with the styles and the formats like tables and images. Remember, keyword scanner, looking for plain text in your resume. If that doesn't convert right, if you've got too many pieces of HTML and formatting, whatever type of formatting your document uses in your resume, and it gets converted to plain text and it turns into garble, then obviously the scanners are not going to be able to find the things they're looking for in your resume. I've done another video on resume no-nos, so I'm not going to rehash a lot of that. That's all still applicable. Putting photos of yourself in US resumes, really bad. I've seen memes in like that's just all like inappropriate stuff for your resume. Simpler is better. Simple, easy to convert format where automated scanners and HR people can find things in your resume. Really good idea. And that's killing a lot of people. It's just preventing them from even being sent to an HR person. And so skills section, also writing a good narrative about you. That's something I see missing a lot. Your resume should be a story. Human beings like stories, and they have short attention spans. And your resume should never read like a job posting for the jobs you held before. You need to focus on, of course, people, again, short attention spans. They only focus so much on your resume. So they start at the top and they kind of lose interest as they go down. So most important things towards the top, most applicable things towards the top of your work experience sections. And then try to flesh those out to tell a good story about you. Again, as I've said in my previous videos, that should mean action and impact. So why was what you did important? Why did you do a good job at it? And then numbers wherever you can possibly do that. Try to put numbers in to convey the scale and scope of what you did for somebody who doesn't know anything about your organization, and also to lend to that impact. How many dollars did you save? How many tickets did you handle? How big were the incidents? How relevant were the incidents that you responded to? All those things can come up in any job role, even if it's a non-IT, non-cybersecurity role. Try to add that context and add to that story about yourself. It'll help you sell yourself better. And a lot of us have a hard time bragging about ourselves. So that's the problems I've been seeing most lately, especially over the last year, where job postings have really had a lot of applicants. The market's been really oversaturated, and it's been bad times for applying for jobs. And I've been fixing a lot of that lately. The other thing that I've been dealing with lately, of course, has been people trying to find their first role and decide what they want to do. I do have a question here. Okay, if you have limited to no security experience, how can you get into security, especially since most jobs want 3 to 5 years for security experience, including entry-level roles? That's an interesting and very political kind of religious question. Thank you for that. So is cybersecurity an entry-level role? But people have very emotional attachments to their answer of this question. I don't have emotional attachment to a lot of questions. You can ask me just about anything. There are good reasons to say you should have some experience in another IT field before you move into cybersecurity. Let me explain those reasons. And this is not a hard and fast universal rule. The reason why we say that is that you need a lot of foundational knowledge about how computers and system administration, networks, programming work to be good at cybersecurity. It's much more important to know the fundamentals of how computers and networks work for security than to know how to use cybersecurity or hacking tools. I've been doing this for a long time. All of the tools have changed. What has not changed drastically is how computers work, how packets work, how networks transmit data. Those things have not changed. The basic fundamentals of how to think through processes and how to hack into things, that hasn't changed. drastically. I mean, there's obviously been improvements in networks and in computer engineering, but the fundamentals really haven't changed that much since I went to college in like 2005. But the tools, they're all different. It's one of the reasons why I encourage people to get like a computer science degree or computer engineering or network engineering degree instead of a cybersecurity degree. Fundamentals will not change. You can always learn new tools. So what we're looking for in cybersecurity analyst candidates is knowledge of those those computer science basics. And you can get those a lot of different ways. You can get them working in a help desk. You can get them working in a NOC doing network management. You can get them as a hobbyist doing a lot of computer stuff. You can get them from a degree. Again, hopefully from your cybersecurity degree, definitely from a computer science or computer engineering, network engineering degree. Those things, thinking about the fundamentals, will make you know what your tools are doing as those tools change over time. So is cybersecurity an entry-level role? It can be. It can definitely be an entry-level role if you've gotten those really good fundamentals from somewhere, and you can prove that in the interview. What we're worried about is people coming in with no experience who also don't have those fundamentals, because I can teach you how to use tools all day, but I can't necessarily expend the time it takes to teach you why those tools do what they do, the foundations of computer science, the foundations of how networks work. Come into the interview knowing that. And that experience could have come from just working help desk for a couple of years, or being a systems administrator for a couple of years, or going to college and getting those fundamentals really good, or going to a boot camp, being in the military, doing a lot of hobby work that you can prove and have evidence of, like volunteer work on your resume. All those things, projects, open source projects, all those things can lend that experience you need to be a good entry-level cybersecurity person. So I don't have to rehash years of computer stuff. I hope that makes sense. I went to a conference a while back and went to a cybersecurity talk, and all of the members of the panel said they preferred users who are very new to cybersecurity to provide a different viewpoint. Diversity in cybersecurity is very, very important. All kinds of diversity: age, gender, economic background, ethnicity, all of those things lend to us being better at cybersecurity, because cybersecurity problems are human problems and they are complicated. Yes, there's an engineering and a technical element to them, but having people who see problems in different ways is a wonderful thing for all types of jobs, all types of technical jobs, all types of IT jobs, but especially cybersecurity, where we handle these complex problems involving humans and criminals and engineering and how systems work together and society. All those things are important in cybersecurity. So yeah, I want junior people. I want senior people. I want people who have been doing this for 20 years. I want people who have just walked into this field. They all lend an important perspective, and I totally agree with that. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. That's wonderful. Thank you, Sasha. I appreciate that. Ask me your questions. I mean, there's not a lot of people on this thread because it was very spontaneous. Shoot, whatever you want to know. I'm going to spend some time on here because I had some mentee sessions canceled today and everybody's off doing Super Bowl stuff. So what do you want to talk about? Whenever I'm hiring for entry-level roles, I'm always looking for interest and passion. No need for extensive experience. I mean, being able to turn on a computer is important. Yes. Again, like I don't need somebody to have a cybersecurity degree. For God's sakes. I mean, if you want to do that and you can afford it, that's fine. Interest and passion are an interesting thing, though. Passion has kind of been devalued as a term, unfortunately, by people who are abusive employers and have a toxic work environment, by saying passion means you need to work 15 hours a day and you need to study in your free time and you can't have a family life, you can't take care of your kids. Be careful about the word passion. I agree. People need to want to learn to be good at cybersecurity. But that can be, I want to learn while I'm in my work hours. That's okay. I want to learn during my work hours and then I want to go home and see my family. That's fine. You can be in cybersecurity because you want to make money. That's fine. Wanting to learn, whether that's inside the context of your work-life boundary, that's fine. You need to want to learn more, because this field is always changing. And that can be, I want to learn more and be good at my job so I can make a bunch of money. That's okay. But you need to keep evolving your skills in some context, because everything changes. Every month it changes. New patch Tuesday, things change. New tools come out, new adversary groups, new tactics, geopolitical conditions. Things are always changing in this field. I've never had a month in my decades of working in IT where the context of cybersecurity hasn't changed. All right. Who's my team? I'm in Chicago, guys. Football is just a sad, sad thing. Anna, thanks for doing this. I will look into booking a one-on-one with, yes. I'm sorry, I'm booked out for a while because things have been bad in the hiring landscape, but I do have cancellations. So check my Calendly regularly if you're interested in a sooner session. I know that I'm booked out to like May right now. And that's like all my free time. I'm not being a jerk about that. I really, really do get booked out that far in advance, but people cancel like they did today. And then if you can jump on it, you can get a session sooner. More general question. Do you see a PhD as a plus or minus for industry analytical roles? Look, again, like this is like a political religious thing for a lot of people, and I'm going to piss off people in the comments. I don't have a strong attachment to one or the other. If you want to be an academic person in cybersecurity and do more like theoretical research, academic research, intelligence, geopolitical research, things that are very, very detached from the day-to-day grind, it's a wonderful route. It's very important that people look at things like AI, ML problems, quantum computing, or even things like just more sophisticated analysis of threats. Going the academic route and being a PhD is a wonderful thing to do. You have to be willing to go into debt to get your student loans in the United States. And you have to want to do that type of academic research, but that's great. We need those people too. Again, diversity in cybersecurity. We need people who are on the ground, straight out of a boot camp, who never did any like formal education. And we need people who are getting PhDs and tackling those really complicated research problems. Do what works for you, your learning style, your finances. There's roles for everybody in cybersecurity. So just think about you and how you learn and what you want to do in cybersecurity when you think about that problem. Let's see, what else do we have? Okay. Any research for career transitioning veterans? Yeah, I did. I retired from the reserves in 21. And so I spent a lot of time in the Air Force. Career transitioning veterans, I recommend the organization VetSec, Veteran Security. And they are a wonderful, very active community. I mean, of course, there's tons of VA resources and tuition assistance, GI Bill things that you should be taking advantage of. There's a lot of, like SANS has a veterans program where you can get training for cheaper. There are infinite veteran resources out there. I don't have time in this call to go through like all of them. They're fantastic, but I would join VetSec, join their Slack, and be an active member of that group because that's a wonderful active community of veterans in the United States who are interested in helping people join the field. And they'll talk about all of those resources in their chat. Do you feel like a master's in cybersecurity without any experience will help you get an entry-level job in cybersecurity? Yes, but it'll screw you over in a couple of years. The thing that I just talked about, where you need the foundations really good in IT, not in cybersecurity. You need to know how computers and networks work and programming works. Your master's is going to skip that, and it's going to teach you tools. And in a couple of years, your skills will be obsolete unless you do a ton of self-study. So if you're going to do a master's in cybersecurity, make sure you have really good foundations in computer science because it is not going to teach you the long-term skills you need to survive in this field. I have really big problems with masters in cybersecurity because they're selling themselves as a be-all, end-all, and they're just not enough training in the foundations to set you up for success in the future. I see people who come into interviews with those and they haven't done anything for 4 years and they don't know anything modern and they're done. They're just done. So be very, very, very careful about masters in cybersecurity unless you've already done stuff previously that gives you really good foundations. I think they're kind of snake oil. It really, really have a lot of issues with schools who offer those. Okay, let me catch up with the questions here. All right. Yes, I agree on passion. Very nice comment, Jason. Any resources? Okay. Do employers value degrees over certificates, or are there some certificates worth pursuing that will get you a leg up in the industry without an IT degree? It depends on what role in cybersecurity you want to be in and how much money you're willing to invest. Yes, there's a million routes into cybersecurity. And employers value different things. Like big established Fortune 50 companies, a lot of them still, especially government contractors and the government, might value degrees, especially if you want to get into a management role someday. You really have to decide where you want to work and what you want to do, because that depends by the employer and the era and the mentality and culture of the company. A lot don't care. A lot don't care, especially in modern cybersecurity, startups, things like that. Certificates that are good to pursue in cybersecurity for entry-level blue team. I really like the Cisco Cyber Ops certification. I think that's one of the best ones out there to be like a boot camp that teaches you good foundations that can get you into an entry-level role. The competing certification for that is, of course, CompTIA's Cybersecurity Analyst certification, which is pretty good. It's pretty good. I don't think it's as comprehensive, but it's a good one to have too. And those are like, I want to be like an entry-level SOC analyst type things. You, again, need to have some computer basics before you get into that, but they'll teach you a lot of the things you need to know to become a entry-level SOC analyst. I teach for SANS, so I'm not going to speak about SANS. I think they're good, but yes, they're very expensive. I think they're very credible certifications and they'll teach you a lot, but they are far outside the budget for most individuals. So I won't talk much more about that. All right, I'm 60, okay? My wife is 3 years younger. I'll be working for at least 8 more years. I'm sorry, but most of us will be. I have some tech experience, but nothing in cybersecurity officially. Should I pursue a job? Sure. Yeah, sure. We need more people. Just be very cognizant of what role you're going to get into, the work-life balance, what you want out of a role, because a lot of cybersecurity jobs involve a lot of travel. Some of them involve non-standard hours, and you have to make a decision. You're married. You might have a family, a house to take care of. What type of work-life balance you need. There's certain roles in cybersecurity, especially the thankless ones behind the scenes, like security engineering and GRC, that have much better work-life balance and require less travel, require less non-standard hours. Decide what's going to work for you in that context, and it'll help you narrow the jobs down. Those thankless jobs usually have pretty stable work because people don't talk about them. They're not sexy, cool, hackery things. So a lot of good options there. You'll be fine. You know how to study. You have a different perspective too than the young kids coming into the field. Okay. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Agnes. I'm a mid-career changer with 7 years of experience in customer success. What does successful cybersecurity customer success look like from your role? Being able to translate technical concepts to non-technical audiences, and being able to translate needs from customers to very technical people who might not be so empathetic. So a lot of translation, a lot of marriage counseling between the two, and understanding the needs of diverse groups of people in terms of cybersecurity controls and products. Thoughts on dropping back from a CISO role to more of a senior contributor, individual contributor? I'd like to get out of management and go to tech. Okay, so this is a very, very good question. There are basically 2 tracks in any technical role, not just cybersecurity. They are discrete things. Thank you for letting me talk about this. There is the management track, people management track, and program management track, and there is the technical track. When you are starting out in your career, you can play a little bit with both. You could play with different niches in the technical side of things, individual contributor side of things, and decide what you want to do based on your learning style, your work-life balance needs, and what interests you. At some point in your career, you are going to have to pick one or the other. You're going to have to pick a technical niche, one of the technical niches, or you're going to have to pick people management. You cannot do both. I'm sorry, there's going to be, again, religious people in the comments going, yes, you can. Fine, maybe you're a happy unicorn. That's fine. But generally, you have to pick one. It is not easy. These are both discrete tracks that require their own training and skills. People management is not easy. It requires real training. It requires empathy. It requires skills with dealing with team dynamics, actual training. It requires wanting to deal with people problems. It is a real job. It's not just, oh, I've been an engineer for a while. I can manage people, no problem. And unfortunately, for a long time, a lot of jobs have pushed people who are technical who do not have those skills into management roles. It happens in the government and the military still. It's horrible. Look, you got to pick one or the other. Reasons to go into management. I want to manage human beings and be a servant leader. That's why you go into management. And that's what you will do for the rest of your career after a certain point. Reasons for staying an individual contributor. I do not want to manage people. I want to be a technical person. In a healthy organization, you can do both and get pay raises and do that for the rest of your career. Okay, so that's for the younger audience here, not for your question specifically, but I wanted to get that out there. Like, okay, so what if you end up down the management track and you're like, oh crap, I don't want to do this. This is horrible. I'm actually not enjoying managing people. I want to go back over to the other side of things. As you go up the track towards CISO, it becomes harder and harder and harder. They diverge more and more. The skills diverge more and more. So what we see happen for the people who get more and more senior on the management track, it's a dive down. You usually have to take a pay cut to go back to the individual contributor path, because you're going to have to do some catch-up learning. You're going to have to, re-up your certifications. You can do it. You can always move between the two, but there's usually, the higher up you get, the more you have to dive to cross over to the other one. If you want to move from a very senior individual contributor techie person, you're going to need a lot of training. You're going to need to move to a lower level management role so that you can get that training and experience on team dynamics, on people problems, finance, all the things that go into being a really good people manager and program manager. Project management skills. That's real stuff that you have to learn. And if you become a senior person like a CISO and you were like, I made a mistake, I want to go back, technical certifications, training, catch-up learning. So the higher you are, the steeper the dive to move across those tracks. So you need to generally, if you're younger, remember that eventually you're going to have to pick one, and you're kind of going to be sort of stuck with it without taking a pay cut and doing a lot of catch-up learning. So yes, you can. You always can. You always can change. You can always have a new start, but it's going to cost you more at a senior level. Yeah. Let's see. I've been referred to as a script kiddie. Oh no. I feel confident with existing tools. Does the company find value in somebody who doesn't build out their own tooling? Yes, but it comes back to those foundations I talked about earlier. If you have weak foundations and you don't understand what your tools are doing, you have a big problem. It's not necessarily building your own tools. But I tell people, if I talk to a lot of people who go to boot camps or classes who have no other experience, and they're like, I don't know if I'm learning the right stuff. Here's my rule. If you are using tools in your class or in your job for cybersecurity, and 30% of the time or more, you don't understand what you're typing in or clicking on, you have a big problem. 30% of the time or more, you don't know what you're typing in or clicking on and what it's doing behind the scenes and why it's doing that. You have a big problem, and you need to go back and look at your foundations and fundamentals, because that's script kiddie space. That's what, I know it's a mean term and I don't use it usually, but that script kiddie space is, I'm using a tool and I don't understand what it's doing. And I don't understand why it works. And that's a problem, again, because that tool is going to change in a couple of years. And yes, somebody could teach you how to use a new tool, but if you don't know what it's doing, you aren't going to understand why it fails and when it's not working. And it's going to be much harder to learn the new tool in a couple of years and understand what it's doing. So that's my rule there. Take a look at that. And if you do not, over 30% of the time, understand what you're typing in at the command line or what you're clicking on or what your tool is doing, you need to step back and go back to computer science fundamentals. It doesn't mean you need to be able to engineer your own security tools, code them. You don't need to be an expert programmer, but you need to understand what your tools are doing and why they're doing that, why they do the things they do. I remember 10 years ago, ISC squared were the top certs. They were very hard to obtain. I don't want to talk about competing certificate bodies. I'm sorry. Yeah. Are there opportunities in cybersecurity? I'm recovering from autistic burnout. I'm 44. Are there any resources for neurodivergent mentorship in cybersecurity? There is a group called Mental Health Hackers that does a lot of interesting work in that space. I really am not aware of resources beyond that, but I'd say the vast majority of people in cybersecurity are neurodivergent. We're all on the spectrum somewhere. If that makes you feel any better. I mean, again, that's not my area of expertise. Mental health and mental health care aren't my area of expertise, but understand that a huge number of people in this space are neurodivergent to some degree. And it's very, very normalized. And most employers understand that. 3 years ago, I changed careers to cybersecurity and I got an associate's. Congratulations. I'm an intern in incident response. Congratulations. Again, that's wonderful. I want to do OT security. How to get a job in OT. Okay, you got your GICSP from GIAC. Okay, so OT is a huge space. It's as big as cybersecurity, and that's obviously what I do for a living. I work in OT or ICS, Industrial Control System Cybersecurity. Understand that this field is as big as all of cybersecurity. There are so many industrial verticals. There's electric, there's manufacturing, there's transportation, trains, aircraft, then medical. All these spaces have non-standard control systems that require cybersecurity. So you kind of need to decide what space you want to be in. Otherwise, it's totally overwhelming. The most important thing that you can know in OT cybersecurity is process and safety. So process consequences and safety. Everything related to ICS and OT is related to consequences. It's related to the holistic process, whether that's producing cans of tuna or keeping the lights on or making safe water coming out of pipes. If it doesn't impact that, it doesn't matter. And if it does impact, it matters. So you have to be a part of that holistic, making sure the process works safely thing. It can't be all about like, oh, I can hack this PLC. Yeah, you can hack whatever PLC you want. They're made to be really simple devices, so there's not a lot of complexity and they always work. Yeah, okay, fine. I mean, it's good to know if they have vulnerabilities, but y'all, they're all vulnerable. All the industrial protocols are vulnerable. As cybersecurity professionals in OT, we need to be able to understand the whole process and what causes a consequence of concern, which is somebody dying or somebody being injured or the process being severely tampered with and causing something to happen to the environment or the equipment or the product that's being released to the public. That's what matters. You need to shift your thinking in OT and ICS and really be able to work with engineers, electrical engineers, chemical engineers, things like that, to understand how cyber stuff can and cannot impact their process. You'll never be as much of an expert on the system as they are. So you need to be able to work with them and say, where are the mitigations for these hazards? What could be a hazard in our environment? What could cause a consequence we care about? And how could that be influenced by cyber? And what mitigations are in place, like physical safety controls, human controls to prevent that? You have to be able to think about that big picture. That's the most crucial element of OT cybersecurity, not hacking PLCs. Like you can hack PLCs all day, okay, fine. But usually there's backups for them. They're redundant, and there's human controls, and there's physical safety controls, pressure release valves, things like that. They're standalone safety systems that are preventing bad things from happening. You have to be able to take apart that big picture and say how things could cause a consequence, and then think about cybersecurity mitigations that don't cause a worse consequence than the bad guy. So that is what you need to understand to be really good at ICS and OT security, is how stuff works. All right. Okay. Sasha, I'm not sure about your question here. Your previous question about the SANS Women's Immersion Academy. I'm not sure what the question is there. Let's see. Yeah. I see that management versus individual contributor thing. You'll be asked to do both, but you can't do them both well. That is true. You really do have to pick niches in this job. There's just too much to learn. I ended up in cybersecurity management and very quickly got out of it and became an instructor instead. Management was definitely not for me. I also got out of management. I've done both. I had to do management in the military and some jobs. I'm actually good at managing people, but I understand I can only choose one, and I would rather be an engineer. I love the technical side of incident response I do, and I understand that it's one or the other. It's just one or the other for the rest of my career, and I'm mid-career. I'm in my 40s. This is the point where I just have to do one or the other. And I chose that I love engineering more. So started computer science master's right after my bachelor's in computer science in the Netherlands. Okay, wonderful. I feel master's is really what you make of it. Yes, some of my mates are passing courses. I felt like nothing was learned. Again, I see the same problem in the master's program. In 2 years, it's not full time, like a boot camp, 2 years, like you're going to college, especially like, college for continuing professionals where you're only doing a few classes a week. It's just not enough time to learn everything you need to know really well, especially with them teaching higher level stuff at a master's level. to really dig into those fundamentals. So yes, I do feel like some of the master's programs are really floofy. They're a little bit too easy. They don't cover enough of the fundamentals. They really are what you make of it. You'll get stuff out of them. There's good classes in them. But again, be careful of not having the fundamentals and those kind of floofy, high level, mile wide, inch deep classes that really aren't going to set you up for success. You really need to evaluate those programs carefully. I see a lot of problems. There's some good programs out there. And I'm not trying to dissuade you from getting degrees. Degrees can be great. They can teach you a lot of things other than tech stuff. And they can teach you how to manage your time. They can teach you how to network. They can be a good thing to have in your resume. Like, do the right thing for you. Just be careful of those master's programs. Yeah, I'm happy to answer questions. Yeah, I'm kind of running out of questions here. At my job, we have huge turnover in security officers, and we found out because they get poached by private companies after a certain number of years who get caught. Yeah, government contractors. Yes. This is a universal problem in the U.S. military and U.S. government. Especially the military actually does provide very, very good cybersecurity training. Most branches of the military have very good cyber programs for entry-level people, particularly. I've seen like the Navy take people who never touched a computer and turn them into good cybersecurity people. So very, very rigorous, intense course to really cram a lot of cybersecurity and foundational knowledge into people's brains. And yes, they are desirable candidates because the military and the government have invested a lot of money in training them to be good cybersecurity people. And after a couple of years of rigorous hands-on experience in the military, they become very desirable candidates for companies who don't want to train their own people and pipeline their own people. So yes, and those private companies can offer them a lot more money. That is the fact of it. An interesting thing that has happened recently, though, is like I was in the Air Force. The reserves and the Air Force have started a direct commission program for cybersecurity mid-level professionals to become officers, like lawyers or doctors do in the reserves, without having to go through all of the military stuff. So you get a direct commission, and it's a more senior direct commission as an officer. So they are thinking about that problem. They really are, about the losing talent in active duty military and in the government and in Guard and Reserve. But as long as you're paid less in those organizations, the sell there is doing something patriotic for your country, doing meaningful work. It's not necessarily the money or the benefits. So there'll always be attrition in the government and military for cyber talent, because those government contractors have massive contracts and they can pay those people a bunch of money to do the same work and get back a bunch of money from the government. So that's just the way our government and contracting and Congress are structured. And it's always going to be a problem, especially when you're asking people to choose a lower paid job for the sake of their ethics and their patriotism, as opposed to just cold hard cash. It'll always be a problem. But obviously, like with this change in direct commissioning in the military, that's huge. That's a really big thing that hasn't happened in a long time. Previously, those exceptions were only for doctors and lawyers and chaplains. That's a big change, and they're obviously recognizing that problem. I'm working part-time as a software dev next to full course university. It helps to see what the industry really wants and uses, and you get a clearer picture on what matters. Yeah, always understand the market in your area. I can tell you certain jobs that in general are more in demand across the industry, but it is going to depend on your country and your region and your state and your city. And you can do better networking locally and looking at jobs locally. That's going to help you find a job. I live in Chicago. I can't tell everybody about the exact needs in their metropolitan area. I know a lot of jobs are remote, but especially for entry-level jobs, you might be looking at companies that are local to you. And it's always a good idea to always be evaluating the market. Always like have an updated resume and try interviewing for some jobs and see what's out there and what money they'll offer you. Like, you should always be doing that. So network, understand what's in demand in your area, and always check that out, scope that out, know what you're worth in your area as well. Department of Energy lab director actually told us, do you want to be rich or do you want to save the world? So my company, I work for Dragos, and our motto as a company is safeguarding civilization. And yes, I could make a lot more money working for Meta, but I would never do that, or Uber. I enjoy not having ethical questions about what I do every day. So I enjoy my job very much, but that's not for everybody. Some people just want to make the most money they can. Biggest problem with the private sector is that training is hardly ever part of the budget. There's always an expectation to hit the ground running. Everyone can't get into the military. Well, no, not everybody can get into the military. It's a good route for people, and not everybody should get into the military. You have to do that because you want to do it. You should never join the military because you think you're obligated to or you're financially forced to. The military people don't want you there. I mean, it's a life or death situation, and you're going to be miserable. So don't do it unless it's something you want to do. But it is a good option if you want to do it, and you can get some good cyber training. I mean, I talked about a lot of options. You can get a degree, you can go to a boot camp, you can do self-study, you can, work in a tangential role like help desk and build up your skills. All those things are good avenues into cybersecurity. I refuse to say that one route is better than others. Like, there's plenty of good options to get an entry-level cybersecurity job. And there will be some employers that are more understanding than others, and I can't fix the ones that have toxic environments. I'm sorry. What is PancakeCon? Oh, Joe. So Joe set me up ready to go to bat here. PancakesCon is my conference. It is next month. You can find out details at pancakescon.com. And my conference started during the pandemic, the week of the first lockdown in the US. And I guess the shtick to my conference is every talk, it's virtual, it's free, it's streamed on YouTube. And the shtick to it is the talks have to be one half entry-level junior cybersecurity educational and one half something not related to IT. So it has to be a hobby, fitness, food, travel, crafts, whatever you want to do. So submit talks. CFP closes in exactly 1 week. Get your talk submissions in through the website. And then tune in next month, at the end of next month on, I believe it's, oh my gosh, I have to go to my calendar here. It's the 24th of March. The 24th of March, that's a Sunday. You can tune in all day. It'll start at 9 a.m. Central US time and end about 6:30 p.m. Central US time. And you can learn about cybersecurity and then have your little breaks learning about all kinds of other random things. We have a lot of fun. There'll be prizes in our Slack. Just tune in and have a good time with us. So thank you for that. I appreciate that, Joe. Any tips on finding cybersecurity internships in the United States? I got into a program that sponsors, this is a visa sponsorship question. Okay, I got a visa sponsored, but we have to find our own companies and get them to write what we'll work on. Yeah, it's tough now with the market being kind of crummy. A lot of companies slashed their internship programs over the last year with RIFs and reductions in force and with layoffs. Most internship programs are starting to recruit people about now for the summer because they expect people to get out of their university in the summer, have summer break, and do their internship then. So this is the time to be looking. The market is crummy right now. It's getting a little bit better, but a lot of companies, that's the first thing they slashed was internship programs before they had to start laying off people. So just expect it to be more competitive, have a really good resume, make sure that somebody's looked over it, make sure that you're interviewing well and that you have your ducks in a row in terms of your coursework and you present yourself as a good candidate, and you're going to just have to do more applying and get more rejections than you used to. I wish there was a magical option there. Networking is always good. Go to your local meetups, go to your local B-sides or virtual. If you're remote, if you're in another country right now, then, do things virtually, participate in Slacks and Discords. Try to do as much networking as you can. Having face-to-face time with people, either virtually or in real life, is very valuable in finding jobs that are more in demand and setting yourself a notch up above everybody else. But really just expect it to be a lot more competitive this year. But this is about the time to start applying. I wish I had a magic answer there. It's just a bad year, but it's better than last year. Last year was just hell. So it's much better this year than it used to be. Great to hear about the military. The military saved my life. I was a dumb hacker teenager in the 90s. I was an idiot, and they knocked some sense into me. I started out as an aircraft mechanic and back shop soldering aircraft parts, and it changed my life. But again, it's not for everybody. But the cyber training programs, if I was going to give you recommendations, if you want to do some military thing to be good at cyber. I'd say the cream of the crop, and I was Air Force, and I'm going to say this, Marines have an amazing cyber program. It's incredibly exclusive, top of the top, and their red teamers are phenomenal. Like Marine red team, that's, if you want to be active duty, that's a space you want to be in. Air Force, it's a mixed bag. It depends on the job you get. If you want to do it part-time, I'd recommend the Air National Guard over the reserves, because the Air National Guard has like red teams and they do state work like election defense. So a little bit more interesting cyber work in the National Guard than the reserves. It's supplementing active duty. If you're looking for a part-time thing, Army is a mixed bag because they have the soldier first thing. So you can always be stuck guarding a door for a year instead of doing your actual job. So be careful with the Army, and nothing against Army, that's just how it works. And I understand that. Navy, though, a really good training program and very different life. I mean, you could get sent some very interesting places. You could be on a ship. So I refuse to play the religious politics thing of which branch of service is better than the other. Like, they're all awesome. They all have their own ups and downs. Like, decide what you want to do. But like, if you want to do part-time, Marine Reserve or Air National Guard would be a good space to do part-time cyber for the military. If you are a person who can do that type of thing, and do look at that direct commissioning program now, if you're a more senior cybersecurity professional, because that's huge. Like, come in as a major, like skip all the lieutenant garbage, like don't have to go to like full OCS or the academy. It's a sweet gig. Like, I wish that had been around when I enlisted in 2001. But that's available to people now today. How to create a resume for ICS or OT cybersecurity. Again, so Sasha wants to know how to create a resume for ICS and OT cybersecurity. Focus on process and consequences again, and focus on industrial technologies and vendors. Name your Honeywells and your Emersons and your Rockwell automation products. And really focus on your ability to work with operators and engineers. That's really important. Your ability to understand processes and consequences. That's an important part of your narrative. Again, it's a narrative. It's a story about yourself. Those are really critical things to focus on over just like, okay, I know some industrial protocols, or I've touched a PLC. Thank you. More shout outs for Pancakes Con. I appreciate that. You're so kind. I can't believe we're doing it again on year 5. Like, I didn't expect that to do that. What are some of your favorite in-person conferences? I'm going to spend about 8 more minutes on this, by the way. So about 8 more minutes of questions before I close this out. My favorite in-person conferences these days. I wouldn't send everybody to RSA and Black Hat because I don't think they're very educational conferences. They're made to sell stuff. They're product conferences. That's not where you send people to learn things. Black Hat, RSA and Black Hat have some good talks, but the bulk of what you do there is get marketed to. And that's not always good. Like, there's a lot of skeevy pitches at RSA and Black Hat for products that really don't do a good job. The people who spend the most money aren't necessarily the best products. So I would focus on sending people to events that are more community driven and operated by people who don't have an agenda and aren't trying to make a bunch of money. Besides Las Vegas is wonderful if you're going to the DEF CON Black Hat type thing. But always support your local B-sides. Everybody's got some kind of local B-sides within some reasonable travel radius. Support that, be a part of that. That's where you see people who want to be, they're passionate about teaching cybersecurity and real important things. And the people who run the conference don't have an agenda. They're doing it to be educational and be a networking event. So go to that. ShmooCon, I'm very sad that next year will be the last year. That was a wonderful conference. I love ShmooCon so much, but I understand it's run by a family, so they deserve a break. And I totally understand that. In my area, I'm in the Midwest. I love CypherCon. I think CypherCon's a fantastic conference. Hope in New York City, also an amazing conference worth a shout out. Wild West Hackin' Fest in Deadwood. That's a wonderful conference. So a lot of the B-sides are excellent. Definitely be a part of your local B-sides. Some of the bigger B-sides in the United States, it would be like B-sides San Francisco is huge. B-sides Charm is really big. B-sides New Orleans. So there's a lot of big B-sides. And of course, the massive one in Las Vegas. Very well organized events. I've been to Kansas City. That was lovely. So you have a lot of great community events that you should be focusing on over the big commercial events if you're a technical practitioner over an executive who just wants to talk to salespeople. And I'm speaking at RSA, and I've got nothing against RSA, but just be cognizant that it's more of a sales-focused event. And if you want to learn things, that's not necessarily the first event you want to pick. The villages are very good at RSA, but again, you're mostly going to deal with business people. Let's see. Yeah, Beige Hat says, yeah, you're in New York City. Yeah, don't miss Hope. My God, you've got Hope there. It's wonderful. Oh God, this is going to be a new tech question that's just going to make me cry. Hey, with Apple's new VR goggles and Elon's mind chip, where do you think the future is located? Not in those things. My God, like the impractical, super expensive future tech is just no. It's like the Juicero of cybersecurity. Where are we headed to a cyberpunk dystopia? It's already a cyberpunk dystopia, but not because of any of those ways big things. It's a cyberpunk dystopia because of surveillance state. It's a cyberpunk dystopia because of economic disparity and racial injustice. It's a cyberpunk dystopia because all of our data is being sold to brokers and we have no privacy protections in the United States. The problems that we really face that make this a cyberpunk dystopia and give us all these cybersecurity issues, especially ethical cybersecurity issues, have to come down to people not understanding the ethics of technology and having poor training on that, and the issues not being cool and sexy, and us being willing to, give up security and privacy over personal convenience, wanting to use Amazon because things show up in 2 days, wanting to use Google because it's easy to use Gmail. I understand that. I'm on YouTube right now. Like, these things make life very convenient, and we have so few legislative protections in the United States, privacy protections, that our data is everywhere. Our data about everything we do in life, from financial to private transactions to communications, nothing is private anymore. So yes, we are in a cyberpunk dystopia, and people need to tackle all of those problems, from economic problems to environmental problems to ethical problems. And those aren't cool, sexy problems, but they're very, very important. So, like, look at what the EFF's doing. They're always on top of these things. Look at what the ACLU is doing. Look at those things behind the scenes and see these issues that are really important, and how you can get involved and how you can participate in helping our world be safer and more just. But it doesn't have anything to do with VR goggles right now, or neurochips. It has to do with things that we deal with every day, like Ring doorbells that aren't cool and sexy. Brett. Hi, Brett. You tuned into my stream. I'm so lucky. Marine Corps Cyber Auxiliary. Yes, they're wonderful. Yeah, Marine Corps Cyber Auxiliary, another great organization if you want to be affiliated with the military, but you don't want to be quite in it. Yeah, wonderful thing to do. What should be a major development to focus on for an incident responder today? What should one be prepared for next as the next challenge in incident response? Everything's ransomware. Everything is ransomware. No, I mean, like, I'd say in OT, my cases are divided into 3 things. It's insiders, intentional and unintentional insiders, ransomware, crimeware, and extortion. And then finally, the advanced adversaries, which are kind of unique in the OT space because they're pre-positioning. They're doing espionage to conduct future attacks against critical infrastructure. So, but if you're doing incident response today, you're going to be dealing with a lot of ransomware, and it's a kind of a machine dealing with it. I mean, there's negotiations with the ransomers, there's cleanup, there's restructuring and re-architecting of the security of the environment, but it ends up being kind of a repeated machine, and it's very, very, very sad. I wish I could say it was all sexy, novel attacks. My pen testers get mad about it, actually. They're like, why are all these incidents you get so boring? Well, because it works, because there's still exposed XP systems, because people still don't have multi-factor turned on in their environment. I'm never going to blame people for clicking on phishing emails. Everybody's always going to click on a phishing email eventually. There's improper controls in place in environments. There's no multi-factor. There's not proper phishing defense tools in the environments. It's not a human problem. It really isn't. Somebody's always going to click on a good enough phishing email or be distracted enough to click on one. Not turning on multi-factor, basic things like that because of various political reasons or technical reasons in the environment. Incident response today can be kind of depressing because you see a lot of the same things over and over again, and people are having the worst day of their lives and they take it out on you. So you better be good at dealing with human beings and better be good at customer service and being screamed at, because we get screamed at every single week or cried at or blamed for things that we didn't do. It's just the nature of the job. The conference in New York City is 2600's Hope Conference, 2600's big conference. It's really a cool conference. It's focused on art as well as hacking. If I can add something about cyber and the jobs in the government sector. Oh, clearances. Okay, so yeah, hi Jim, good to see you. Clearances, mixed bag. As somebody who's in the military. So the upside to clearances is it opens a lot of job windows to you because they're very expensive to get and it's a long process. It takes a very long time to get one and it's very involved. And once you have it, like that's A++ to have for applying for government and contracting jobs. Like, yeah, it's an in for a lot of jobs you could never get otherwise without being a citizen with a clearance. The downside is you have a clearance. Yeah, if you've never had one, it's a big thing. Like that means that you can't talk to people outside of the United States without having approval. Like you can't have friends and family or get married or date people who are not US citizens, or like when you're traveling. You can't have buddies who are foreign citizens. You can't do that unless you want to submit their information to your security manager and tell them all about their personal details, like where they were born. It's very invasive. They look at your finances. They look at your social media. You're tracked. You can't leave the country without approval, without briefings. Like it's very invasive in your life. So it's a trade-off. You need to decide whether that's something you want to do because it will impact every aspect of your life for however long you have an active clearance. But yes, it will open job windows for you. You've got to decide whether you are willing to jump through those hoops and have your life restricted like that. So serious business, not just like, oh, I'm going to go to clearance and I'll get a bunch of jobs. You have to be willing to give up a lot of stuff, especially if you like to travel, you like to speak, you like to talk to people outside the US virtually or in person. If you have friends or family who aren't Americans, it's a big deal. So, I'm going to be closing this out in a couple minutes. I'll take like maybe 2 more questions. Let's do 2 more questions. All right. Yeah. Nice to see you, Sasha. Have a nice flight. You mentioned a lot of social problems that forced us into a cyberpunk dystopia already. What are some things IT professionals can do to combat that, just despite just donating money to charities? This is such an interesting tangent we've gone on here. Yeah, I mean, one of the best things I advise is being well informed on the ethical and economic and social problems that face us as technical professionals. It's very easy to just do techie stuff and be in a bubble because we're tech nerds who are typically in a bubble of tech nerds who are generally pretty well off economically, educated to some degree. You know, we're very privileged people for the most part. I mean, we might not be for various reasons, gender, being LGBT, race, things like that. So we can have things that make our societal experience differently, but generally we're pretty privileged, especially in the United States. And that can really narrow our worldview of how technology and the things we do impact other people. And the worst thing is when we're engineering solutions for things and we don't think about other people who have different worldviews and different lives than us and different backgrounds than us, because that's where we end up with like surveillance technology that's unfairly targeting people of color, which is a huge issue. That's really, really scary. But somebody thought it was cool to do facial recognition, so they built it. Somebody thought it would be cool to do like AI image generation, and now there's women out there who are getting fake nudes generated of them all over the place. Like, we have to think of the implications of the things we build in cybersecurity and technology in general. So ethical training and really expanding our worldview and being well-versed and hearing different perspectives on social issues and geopolitical issues is the best weapon we can have against the things we build being used for horrible, nefarious, dystopian purposes. What do you look for? This is going to be my last question. What do you look for when hiring an incident responder on your team? I look for your ability to think through problems. I am interested in your forensics background, your technical background, because I hire mostly mid-level professionals. Differ isn't usually an entry-level job. You usually work as a security analyst or some other cybersecurity job for a couple of years before going into Differ, because of the level of experience, just hands-on experience you need. So I look for their ability to do security analysis work. So network forensics, memory forensics, host forensics to some degree, but I mean, one of those areas. I can teach them the other two. I can teach them how to use tools. But what I'm generally looking for is people's ability to think through complex problems and think through things outside the box. Think through problems where the cause wasn't cyber. Think through problems where there's a human element, where they can't do certain things, where there's limitations in the technical things that they can do. I want them to be able to think through a complex problem or case and think about how they change their tool use or deal with human beings or think of a new solution or a new cause for the problem, as opposed to, I click on this button. Again, the tools are going to change. The tools always change. The attacks always change. What doesn't change? Fundamentals and critical thinking, being able to think through complex problems. So I do scenario-based interviews where I'm not looking for a specific button clicked or a specific tool, how you type something at the command line. I want to know, regardless, independent of those things, how do you think through a case, an interesting, complex case where there's human elements? And can you do that? Can you think through this problem and structure a solution to it, independent of, I typed this in Linux. Yeah, okay, fine. You can look that up on the internet. You can have a cheat sheet in front of you. I don't care. I need you to know what you are doing and why. So that's my answer to that. So it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate you joining me. I hope you tune into PancakeSCon next month, and I hope you get a talk submitted this week before the CFP closes. It's been lovely chatting with you all. Thank you for the wonderful questions. Until next time, reach out to me on Mastodon, reach out to me on Threads or Blue Sky, on LinkedIn. I have a blog. And finally, you can always schedule one-on-one time with me through my Calendly, which is linked on all of those things. Take care, everyone. Like and subscribe.